sector is clear. Not clear! Not clear!
Electronic Arts conquered the video game market by making some of the top console games in the world.
We're gonna make history.
From FIFA to Battlefield and The Sims. But in 2013, EA was named the worst company in America by a consumer blog, not just one, but 2 years in a row, as social and mobile gaming took off. That's when EA CEO John Riccitiello left the company and longtime EA employee Andrew Wilson stepped in. Wilson, a lifelong gamer, musician, and surfer from Australia, has since steered a major turnaround, with EA announcing record earnings in July 2017. Joining me today on Bloomberg Studio 1.0, Electronic Arts CEO Andrew Wilson. So let's start at the beginning of your time at EA. In 2013, the company was struggling in many ways financially. The Consumerist named it the worst company of the year, 2 years in a row. But today it's different. You've reported record profits. What did you do differently?
I've been in the company since 2000, and I was wandering the hallways one day in 2013, and they made me CEO.
I don't think that's quite true. But
There's somewhere in there is some truth. And we had struggled, and it wasn't because we were a bad company, and it wasn't even because we made bad games. It's because we'd lost our focus. And we came in and we said, okay, what's the most important thing? Who facilitates us to do the thing that we love, which is make games? And that was our player. And so we started every conversation for the longest time and continuing today with, okay, is this good for the player? And what you discover when you started to read into the worst company in America vote, which feels like an age ago now, but is still always at the forefront of our memory, is there was just a bunch of stuff that we were doing that they didn't like. And there was a bunch of stuff they expected us to be doing that we weren't. And when you run a public company, that's challenging. And you have to make really hard decisions about making sure the games are great, making sure the games are scalable.
Tell me some of the hard decisions you made.
Just after I got the role, we launched a game called Battlefield 4. Biggest, first-person shooter game for us of the year. And it really struggled with scalability, just in the infrastructure. And so we had to make a judgment call that said, right, we're not going to deliver a whole bunch more paid content until we fix this for our gamers. A year later, we were launching another Battlefield game, and it wasn't quite ready. And so, if you follow our industry, what you know is first-person shooters always launch in the biggest quarter of the year, right for holidays. And we had to make a decision for our player that said, we could launch it, but the game's not ready. And so we held it. And that was a big move for us to hold the biggest game in the biggest quarter and ship it 6 months later. And so once players started to see that, they started to recognize that we were serious about this. And we've made a series of decisions like that over the past 4 years in service of our player. The funny thing is you look after them and they look after you.
You've got a bunch of new games out this year. What are you excited about most?
We're in the entertainment business, so everything we do is fun and exciting. But our ability to reach more and more people through new platforms and mobile and new games and new business models and new geographies. More people play games now than ever before. And that's pretty exciting. When you start to get to a point where you're not building for a couple of 100 million people, you're now building for 2.5 billion people, which is the best part of half the world's population, then you can start to do some pretty impressive and wonderful things.
So you mentioned mobile. How much money are you making from mobile now?
Mobile is a growing business for us. We had more downloads than any other publisher last year. Madden Mobile has launched again for its 4th year as top of the charts. Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes continues to do really well, and we've got a new Sims game coming.
Do you wish you had a Candy Crush? Do you wish you had an Angry Birds?
Well, I don't wish for Angry Birds because it's been and gone. I think Candy Crush is a tremendous game. The mobile business is tough. But we have a Madden, and it's right up there with Candy Crush. We have a Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and it's right up there with Candy Crush. And we fully expect that The Sims, which has had over 120 million downloads of the first game that we launched on mobile, and is likely going to have at least that going forward, we think that's a really big opportunity for us.
Meantime, the competitive landscape is changing. Your competitors keep raising the bar. How would you describe the competition?
It's the competition for time. It's the competition for our best time. So it's not just people who make video games. It's people who make movies. It's people who write books. It's people who do TV and music. It's sports that we play. It's family time. And what we're working on is how do we build experiences that enhance all of those things? And so we're not trying to take away from people's lives. We're trying to be additive to it. And in a world where people are doing more things at once than they've ever done before, the notion that 24 hours in a day is an impediment is really no longer an issue for us. I look at my daughter who's 5, who does 7 things at once. And our job is how can we enhance people's lives and extend and enjoy, their enjoyment and their entertainment value.
It's interesting to hear you speak about games that way because I think the popular perception of games is that they're a time suck, that they're not improving your lives, they're detracting from your life, especially as you have a generation of children getting their social and cultural cues from games. Is it really true that games are improving their lives?
It's about self-esteem. Games allow you to build self-esteem by overcoming challenges. It's about self-worth and self-actualization. Games, we build sandboxes that give people the opportunity to create. When we think about the motivations of why people play games, immersion, social connection, competition, creation, self-improvement, these are all core motivators of why people play. And what we see, for kids who play sports games, their sport IQ is higher than some professionals.
So how did you get into the gaming business?
I was kind of wandering around aimlessly. No, I had worked in the internet business and been involved in content creation and creative, and I was a very diligent sports person. I was involved in surfing and rugby and cricket in Australia. And there was a little studio from a company called Electronic Arts. It was, making a surfing game and making a rugby game and making a cricket game. And they had all these engineers, but they didn't really have anyone that knew anything about the sports. And so I got the opportunity to go and work for EA, and I thought, this will be fun. I'll do this for a couple of years, and then I'll go and get a real job. And I guess 18 years later, here I am.
Women have been for so long underrepresented among game makers
Yes.
and in games themselves. What kind of progress are you seeing? Women have been for so long underrepresented among game makers
Yes.
and in games themselves. And not just underrepresented in games, but portrayed negatively
Yeah.
in games. What kind of progress are you seeing?
I think we're making tremendous progress. So for the longest time, it was probably 90% males who played games and 10% females. And so that wasn't a particularly, inviting environment for females to come into. Now it's almost 50-50. And we've got some work to do there on the environment. But when we think about how we portray women in games, we added national women's teams in our FIFA game. We added the WNBA in our NBA game. Our lead character in Star Wars Battlefront 2 this year is a woman. We released a game not too long ago called Mirror's Edge, where the lead character was a woman. And these aren't the women, that you may have seen in video games 10 years ago. These are strong, powerful, inspiring leaders that our young women playing these games can look up to and be inspired by. And they're not. There's not gratuitous violence against women. There's not, the way we clothe them is appropriate. And that's really important to us. And that wasn't something that we mandated as a company. It was just something that our company believed in intrinsically in our creative process. And so as we think about, real representation of women inside of our games, it also means changing, the representation of women inside of our company. And we're making real headway there. We've got a lot of work to go, but we have a lot of great senior creative leaders and senior business leaders, including members of, of our board. And then the third, which is perhaps the greatest place we can have impact, is inside of our communities. And, we reach hundreds and hundreds of millions of people around the globe. And we are trying to foster an inviting and inclusive and diverse community amongst game players. And we're trying to change the conversation, and we believe that by virtue of the leadership position we have, we can do that. And we're actively, taking action around that.
Online harassment is a problem in general. It's a problem especially for women on social networks and in games themselves. How do we make the environment better for women inside these multiplayer communities?
It is unacceptable. We believe in a diverse, inclusive environment for men and women and other minority groups for that matter. Games are for everyone. Games should be something that bring us joy and happiness and extend the wonderful things in our life. And we're taking action, and our global kind of community group spends every minute of every day looking at every conversation happening in and around our games and looking for opportunities, not just to police the badness, but encourage the goodness. And, as a father of a 5-year-old daughter, that's important to me. And as a father of a 2-year-old son, I want him to grow up understanding that this is not a women's issue. This is an everybody issue. And as a boy, I want him to grow up in support of the things in service so that his sister can live in a world where she can be anything she wants.
The Gamergate campaign led to widespread harassment of women within the gaming industry on social networks. Why do you think that happened?
It was a multifaceted problem, and it was very disappointing. It was disappointing for me, in my role in our company, and we worked really hard to try and quell that and move people on and help people understand. I think that when you get anonymity in the internet, people have a willingness to behave in a way that's unacceptable. And part of what we want to do is try and help people understand that that's not acceptable and foster a more inclusive, diverse, welcoming culture for men and women.
Would changing anonymity or requiring that people use their real names, is that an option?
I think that's an internet problem. And we're going to do all we can to solve all the problems we can. And be a voice for change and a catalyst for the positive movement that is a diverse and inclusive culture.
When it came to Gamergate, the mainstream industry was criticized for not speaking up enough. Was that fair?
I think everyone who was involved in that was criticized by various parties. So I think that we came out and were very clearly stood by, for us as a company, diversity, inclusion, both in our games, in our employee base, and in our communities. And we were very solid on that. And we will continue to do that. I don't spend a lot of time talking politics, but I do spend as much time as I can upholding the values of our company.
Riot Games did an interesting study of behavior on their platform, and they found that just kicking out the bad players actually didn't change so much, that the negative behavior continued. What did make a change was changing the rules and trying to enforce norms of positive behavior. Are you seeing that?
Well, a big part of what we see is the appropriate representation of women in our games is a big change and a big shift, because not only does that act as an inspiration for young women who are playing our games, who see these characters in our games who are strong and powerful and independent, it also helps the boys playing our games understand that that's exactly as it should be as well. And they shouldn't be fearful of this, and they shouldn't back away from this, that a world where we all have equal voice and equal position in the community is the world we all want to live in. And so, we spend a lot of time trying to amplify that message amongst young boys and young girls. And we're seeing that have positive change.
There's some concern that some of these issues could get worse as we move into virtual reality. There was that story about a woman being groped in virtual reality. Is this cause for concern?
I don't know whether it's cause for concern. I think we have to be deliberate about how we make these moves, and we have to be deliberate about the behavior that we condone in these environments. We have to be deliberate about the game designs and how we facilitate interaction inside of, virtual worlds. Because we do know that there are people in this world who don't behave the right way. And we can't be the global censors of all behavior, but we have to be very deliberate about the kind of behavior that we encourage inside of our virtual worlds. And we're spending a lot of time thinking through that puzzle at a design level, at a platform level, at an interaction level.
Is virtual reality living up to the hype?
Hype's a weird and wonderful thing. We all want virtual reality to be the thing that we dreamed of as young people. We wanted to give us the true ability to immerse ourselves in experiences that we otherwise would never have the chance to experience. We wanted to overcome the spatial disconnect that exists between us and our 60-inch TV screen. We wanted to allow us to be people and do things that we otherwise could never do. So anything that has the ability, through innovative technology, consumer value proposition, low barrier to entry, to also fulfill those motivations you have for games, has a big opportunity.
So tell me about your VR efforts and your AR efforts.
So VR, we very quickly added VR capability to our core engine. So we have a single engine that supports all of our games. We launched a VR experience with Battlefront last year and are working on a mobile experience as well, so we get both ends of the spectrum. So we really went about it and said, okay, what do we have to do? We need to understand how to develop it at a core engine level. Let's implement that. But then the other big challenge for us is design. The three biggest categories in games right now are action-adventure, first-person shooters, and sports. And all of those require you to run around in space, all of which is challenging inside of VR right now.
We've seen Pokemon Go with, the combination of augmented reality and location-based services. What do your AR efforts look like?
Pokemon Go gave us a sense of what might be possible. It was kind of a catalyst for thought. When we look at AR kit, when we look at the various things that Apple and Google are providing for us in mobile, think about any information that might overlay on an experience to enhance that experience. That might be geolocation. That might be other things that you do in your life. That might be what your friends are doing. That might be what's in your calendar. That might be what's in your fridge. And so what we're looking at right now is thinking about how many streams of information does any player have available to them? And how might they use those streams of information, those streams of data, to extend and enhance their experience? So that when I'm playing The Sims, the amount of eggs I have in my fridge might impact, are my Sims fed? It might mean that when I'm playing Madden Mobile, if I'm at a game, I have access to different players than I do if I'm not at a game. It might mean that if I'm at soccer practice, I am rewarded for all of the things I do at soccer practice when I get back to playing my FIFA game. So we're thinking about this notion of mixed reality, not just in terms of geo services, but how many streams of data do players have available, and how might we use those streams of data to enhance their play experience?
We haven't seen cloud-based gaming take off. There's no Netflix of gaming yet. Does that change? We haven't seen cloud-based gaming take off. There's no Netflix of gaming yet. Does that change?
I think the greatest disruptor to the consumption of entertainment media in the last 5 years has been the combination of streaming plus subscription. It's changed the way we watch television, it's changed the way we listen to music, it's changed the way I read books. The notion that it wouldn't impact our industry, I think is naive. Will it take a little bit longer? Yes, for a whole bunch of reasons. File size, level of interactivity, design. Whether you listen to, Led Zeppelin album on your phone or in your car or on your PC at home, it doesn't change. When we design a game that lives in a true streaming world, we have to think about screen size and session time. How does a Madden game that exists in the cloud manifest on your mobile phone 1 minute at a time? How does it manifest on your 60-inch TV an hour at a time? And how does it manifest on the dashboard of your car as you drive to work? It's a design challenge there. So we've got technology challenges with bandwidth and file size. We've got design challenges as you go from screen to screen, moment to moment gameplay. But I do believe it will play an important part in our world in the future, the same way it does in music, movies, TV, books.
Your competitors, Activision and Riot, are selling franchises to their games for tens of millions of dollars. What's EA's esports strategy?
We launched our second year for Madden competitive gaming. We were the first partner of an official sports league where we got all teams and all players involved. We're very excited about that. We're going to second year of our FIFA competitive gaming, and we've also announced that we have Battlefield competitive gaming coming. We saw exponential growth in engagement. Players who engaged in our FIFA competitive modes engaged at 3 times the rate of people that didn't. And so we have maintained for some time, as did Riot in the early years, that competitive gaming is a way to engage a player base in the 2 greatest positive motivators of human behavior: social connection and competition.
How big do you think esports are going to be?
Human beings love to watch anything where the best in the world are doing it and the stakes are high. Take something that literally 2.5 billion people do on the planet, and you have an audience ready to engage. And what we're seeing now is the great players amongst that 2.5 billion players are rising to the top, and the stakes are high. When you watch our games being played, it's true entertainment. And these are the best in the world doing it, and the stakes are high. So I think it's going to be big.
Rogue One did half the box office of The Force Awakens. Overall, Star Wars merchandise sales are slower than when Disney's first reboot came out. Can your Star Wars Battlefront 2 game do as well as the first?
What we have done is listen to our community. What they said about our first Battlefront game that they bought a great many units of was, this is an amazing game, but it needs to be bigger, it needs to be broader, it needs to be deeper, it needs a single player campaign, it needs space battles, it needs more complexity in player evolution inside the game. So we have built a game that's 3 times the size of the first one. It is 3 times broader, 3 times deeper, it has space battles, it has a single player campaign. We are doing everything in our power to deliver to our very, very large Star Wars community the game they want.
How do you think about the ability to potentially deepen your relationship with Disney?
We've got a great relationship with Disney. I think they have some wonderful IP, and if there was an opportunity to do more with them, we would, because they've been wonderful partners, and I think we complement what they do. And I think if there's an opportunity to do that again, we would jump at the chance.
Would there ever come a day when you don't release new titles on your franchises every year and just release online content like Take-Two does with Grand Theft Auto?
The short answer is yes. There's a few different things that's got to happen first. We do a lot in a FIFA game every year and a lot in a Madden game. There's a lot of code that we make available as part of the new iteration. But when we look at what we do in Korea or China, we don't do it that way. About every 4 years, we release a new big code drop, and we offer incremental change over time. So what we see, in Korea and China, what we see on mobile, I think there's a world where that might also happen in other parts of our business.
Apple has been pushing to become a bigger platform in games. It still hasn't happened. Do you think that will happen for Apple?
The App Store is a pretty big business. And up until recently, games have been the lion's share of that business. What we're starting to see now is subscription services like Spotify and Netflix and Pandora and YouTube and Tidal rise to the top of the app charts. And that's partly because Apple and others have come to understand that subscription is a really, really valuable way to engage with the consumer base. Valuable for the person providing the subscription and value for the subscriber. It is a friction-free way of ingesting large amounts of content. And so I think that they are doing a great job. And I think that you will see games continue to be a big part of their app store. But what you might start to see is the business model around games change. And we're getting ready for that.
How's the business model going to change?
Well, so if you think about, free-to-play is a wonderful business model in mobile, and it has allowed mobile to become, as big as the console platforms in terms of overall game revenue. But we are seeing a propensity for App Store users to engage in Netflix and Spotify and Tidal and Pandora and some random dating apps. And they're doing that through subscription. And so we're looking at the business and saying, okay, is there a way we can offer great value to players through subscription in mobile? And I don't think we're there yet, but it's something that we're looking at.
Where is EA in 5 years?
Hopefully they still have an Australian as a CEO. I think that what you will see from us is that we, as a result of our pioneering innovative spirit, as a result of our consumer focus, that we are one of the great entertainment companies. And that we have delivered wonderful game experiences to an ever-growing, ever-engaging population of gamers of all genders and all backgrounds. And that people look at us and think that's a great company, and I'm very happy to have them as part of our life.
All right. Andrew Wilson, CEO of Electronic Arts. Hopefully CEO in 5 more years. We'll see.
Let's hope so.
Thanks so much for joining us today on Bloomberg Studio 1.0.
Thanks so much.